Welcome back, everybody. We're so excited to have you here with us. And joining us is Senator Nina Turner, former state senator from Ohio, former Bernie Sanders surrogate, a woman that I admire very, very deeply, even though there are many things we don't agree about.
You're not supposed to say that in the intro.
And I am so grateful to you. You've written for me at Newsweek and helped me understand a side of politics that is very, very important to our nation. I feel like we are in a we together, and that is so much more important than anything happening in any other place on earth. And so I'm so grateful to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you both.
So you're a floor delegate for Ohio.
Yes.
You're very vocal for the uncommitted vote and that cause. Are you supporting Kamala Harris? Are you going to vote for her? How do you see your role in this moment?
Well, I'm waiting to see more policy rollouts. I'm not one of those Democrats that are jumping to it. I want to make sure that material conditions for everyday people in this country change. So far, some of the economic things that she has rolled out, we need more details. But, I'm pretty pleased with those. In terms of the uncommitted, right now there's a sit-in happening with the uncommitted voters right now, just kind of spontaneously, because the DNC allowed, rightfully so, a Jewish family to talk about their son that was maimed and also kidnapped and is still held there now, 320 days, I believe. And it was such a touching and moving speech. And one of the things the parents said, and I'm a parent, so I was starting to tear up. I have a son, and I'm tearing up and I'm paraphrasing them, the hostages must be returned, and there must be a type of liberty and justice for everybody impacted. Now I'm paraphrasing them, but it was such a moving and inclusive, recognizing Palestinian lives, but also talking about their pain, just not a but, talking about their pain as parents because they haven't not seen their son. And the hostages must be returned, and there should be a permanent ceasefire and a path to real peace, justice for both peoples. Now, the DNC, though, decided not to allow a vetted, they asked for a vetted, the uncommitted said vet a Palestinian and allow them a chance to speak so that the members of the DNC can hear, both pains. People are suffering. And the DNC said no. So now
Why?
The uncommitted voters are sitting in.
Why did they do that? And it was a vetted speech. I mean, the speech they would have seen
Every
it
speech is
beforehand.
vetted,
Every
right?
speech is vetted.
Exactly.
And my understanding was that the person they had chosen was going to come out and support Kamala Harris. Mm-hmm. Why did they say no?
I don't know. I have some speculation. It might be unfair to speculate. So I don't know. I will say that I think it is wrong. And if they want to win, we know that the uncommitted voters started with President Biden, obviously, when she becomes officially the nominee tomorrow night. She has to wear some of that. I don't think that their request is unreasonable by any stretch of the imagination. If they want to win, if Democrats want to win, they are going to have to answer the cries of the uncommitted movement.
The DNC is, a pretty formidable organization. I mean, you work for
a private corporation.
A private corporation, which is what Marianne Williamson said.
Yeah.
When you are somebody who is on the kind of more left wing of the Democratic Party, uncommitted, talking about the Palestinian issue, how do you feel that they treat you and deal with that dissent within the party?
They don't. They
just ignore it.
They ignore it, but at their own peril. President Biden, I mean, we elect presidents in this country by the Electoral College. It's not going to be the popular vote. Michigan, President Biden barely won.
Yeah.
We got Wisconsin. These are about 5 or 6 key states that they can't afford to lose any margins. You had 100,000 voters come out in an uncontested primary and vote uncommitted. You had in Michigan, you had 50,000 in Wisconsin. You start adding up those voters. I don't think those voters are necessarily going to go to Trump because Trump and Biden hold similar policy positions on the state of Israel. But what is going to happen is they're going to alienate those voters and they won't come out to vote. In the Electoral College, it matters.
Do you want to watch a little bit of Vice President? All right. That was possibly future Vice President Tim Walz. I was looking at you. No.
But
I wasn't trying to.
You were looking at me.
I was trying to check. I was like, what is she? But I saw a head nod on "No child will be hungry." You didn't see a lot of other head nods. Is that a fair assessment?
It's fair. I mean, I think in this country we should have universal breakfast and lunch. It's a shame that we don't. We are a hegemonic nation. I was kind of trying to take him in a little bit to try to figure out, where he was going. The reason why I kind of hesitated a little is because the Biden-Harris, the vice president is both running for president, but also is tied to the Biden administration. And so all of these wonderful things that my fellow Democrats are talking about, they could have done, especially in the first 2 years of the Biden administration. I don't want to hear nothing about cinema. I don't want to hear nothing about mansion. You carry a big stick. You need to walk softly, carry a big stick. There's a way to try to get members of your party to try to do the right thing. It's called negotiation. It's called, hey, I'm going to rain down on you if you don't. So the fact that they did not pass increasing the federal minimum wage in the first 2 years of the Biden administration to $7.25 for well over a decade troubles me. And then they blamed it on the parliamentarian. Paid family medical leave, why don't we have it? So those things trouble me. So I know that this is a cheerleading fest. I'm just a different kind of Democrat. So I'm going to take them at face value that when she's in the first chair and he's in the second chair, they're going to do a new thing, because it is important for our viewers to understand she's the vice president, so you got to march to the drum, to the beat of the president. But I've just heard these things over housing and healthcare is a right. Well, yeah, it is a right. So why don't we have universal healthcare? Why, as a country, are we allowing corporations to gobble up property in this nation to drive up rents and price people out of being able to live in the communities where they grew up? Hello, Chicago. Hello, New York, Seattle, places like that. So, no, you saw me right. And then the Project 2025, this drives me absolutely insane. I want to know where the Democrats' Project 2025 is. It's one thing to point out that the Republicans have a plan to destroy this country and take us backwards. Once you tell me that, I want to know what your plan is to move the country forward. I don't see that in the Democrats, and I see it, this Project 2025. We should be concerned, but I see it as a scare tactic.
I mean, I think you're right about that, particularly in the Project 2025 stuff. But does it bother you that, these are the things that you say need to be enumerated by Kamala Harris and by this campaign? Sure. And she's not talking to the media because the poll numbers been going up.
She didn't come to the Free Press.
Yeah, we asked.
Man, I'm about to make a call.
Yeah, can you call her
right now?
I think you can you WhatsApp her right now? Yeah. I mean, she's gonna come. But but that's. Do you think that she should be out there talking policy and not saying, you know what? I'm floating right now. Let's see if I can remain floating for a little while.
And just to add to that,
yes.
So she does seem to be headed policy-wise in the opposite direction than what you might want, right? I mean, in 2019, she was much more radical on every single one of the issues that she spoke to. Everything we've heard so far this round is a kind of moderation. So I guess my question is, does that worry you? But also, I mean, why are you still a Democrat given, your experience with Bernie Sanders, your experience here, explain that to us.
I probably need my head examined. Einstein defined insanity. I'm trying. There's so many faithful that want people like me to stay and to raise hell. Two major parties, unfortunately, in this country, not a whole lot of room yet. I hope one day, and I hope I live to see it, to have an independent party. I just want to raise hell inside. So there's some people on the outside. For now, I'm on the inside. Who knows if I'll stay. But I do feel at times like I'm beating my head up against the wall. They rigged the election against Senator Bernard Sanders in 2016. They rigged the election against him in 2020. We all may remember when the top 4 or 5 candidates all coalesced around, or the top 4 candidates coalesced around the vice president at that time, Biden, who was not doing very well. But they all got a call, so they jumped the race, and they jumped out of the race and all got behind President Biden.
It's a,
So it's a legitimate question. I don't know.
But is there anything, so for example, I'm hung up on this, but so the head of the Teamsters was welcomed at the RNC and gave the most progressive speech of any convention in the last, I don't know, 30 years, right? Something like that. He yelled at Republicans for 25 minutes about how to treat workers better. And for that crime, he was ghosted and disinvited from the DNC. I mean, is there any moment at which you would give the Republican Party in its new populist iteration a second look, or is that totally
They're
off
faux
the table?
populists. I mean, they not real.
You don't buy it.
The one thing that I do agree, and you didn't see me, I was kind of taking it in, is when the governor talked about the type of freedom that Republicans want us to have. They don't want us to be free to really chart a path that is progressive. They want they want a type of freedom that continues to divide people in this country. I think he was absolutely right about that. Today's Republican Party is nowhere near where the Lincoln Party, where Lincoln was, and even back then it wasn't perfect, but the radical Republicans, I mean, they do have a history. They were the ones that stood up against chattel slavery of my ancestors, and it was the Democrats that wanted to enslave us. I don't necessarily think parties have switched places, as I hear all the time. I just think that both parties are captured by corporate interests. And that pains me greatly. And I wish that the American people had another choice. They don't have it yet, but I think they might have it one day. So no, I can't look at the Republicans, especially the federal ones, because they
What's your read on why so many black men, Hispanic voters have found in Trump something to admire, something even to vote for?
Madam Editor, I'm glad you asked me that question. For me, the Democratic Party emasculates black men. And I think Hispanic men probably feel the same way. And I say this because they weaponize identity. When and where we enter, who we are, how we identify is important to who we are, just like our fingerprints. But if you're not going to use my identity to advance a social justice cause, and you're just going to use my identity as a blunt force object, now I got a problem. And so what the Democratic Party does, they put black women on a pedestal and they say, we're the mothers of the movement, or we saved the party. But yet you don't put forth policies that save black babies. You don't put forth policies that deal with the maternal death rate of black women and black babies in the United States of America. You don't do those things that lift and edify. Yes, identity is important. Both parties use it differently. Republicans use it to say that everybody black or brown or of a mixed race is somehow kind of way a DEI hire. They use it to say certain books will be banned. Don't tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about how this country was formulated, because you might hurt a white child's feelings by saying that, yeah, chattel slavery existed, and oh, by the way, white powerful folks stole the land from the indigenous people. So all of those things, Chinese Exclusion Act, I mean, we can go down the list. But Democrats use it in a way that alienates other folks, and it offends me. So when I talk to black men across this country, they don't see themselves in this party. It's one thing to recognize the power and prowess of black women and the sacrifices that we make. It is another thing to put us above black men. The black struggle, black men and black women have to be together. We don't have the luxury to be separated, and so I resent the Democratic Party for doing that. And so black men do not see themselves in the party. That bravado, because we got a kind of masculine energy, and masculine energy is not all bad, but the type of bravado that Trump puts forward is still very much rooted in a hierarchical patriarchy, and a lot of men gravitate to that.
Yeah, so is it, you feel in a way, it's tokenization in a way if they don't pay any attention to it, right? If it,
the mic, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Yes.
They were falling apart at the end of the night. But that's essentially.
That's exactly it.
Is it a thing that I've seen, a lot of people, and particularly certain kind of left-wing scholars say that, yeah, we've focused on identity for a long time, and it's been a lot of words at the expense of class. Class is an important element, and that is not something the Democratic Party wants to deal with. You said this about Bernie Sanders, and I talked to him about this before. Everyone knows that they thumbed the scale, to put it very mildly, in 2016.
They put bodies on the scale.
They put bodies on the scale, right? There's a follow-up question that I think everyone thinks that we presume that we know the answer to this. Why? Why is the Democratic Party, trying to box out somebody who's very popular, His policies are very popular. He's a very effective speaker. He has this kind of consistency that you don't have a conversation. Well, Kamala Harris said this in 2020, she says this now, because this is the direction of the party. Why is the party afraid of somebody who could actually win? It's not like you're wasting time with somebody who can't win. I think Bernie Sanders could have won.
He could have beat Trump. I believe that. They're opposite ends of the spectrum. Trump is a faux populist. Senator Bernie Sanders is a real populist who really believes in the power of the people. I think they fear it because both political parties, private organizations, I want our viewers to understand this, that control our electoral system are captured. So you have corporate capture of both major parties. And so corporations don't want us to have health care for all. Corporations don't want us to drive down the cost of pharmaceutical drugs so that we can pay the same amount that our sisters and brothers in Canada, by way of example, pay. They don't want that. And so these corporations spend billions of collective dollars every single year to lobby members of the Congress and the people running for the presidency so that they can stay in control. It is very simple. Just follow the money. Follow who's donating the money, how much money they're donating, how these corporations are investing multi-millions of dollars that adds up to billions of dollars collectively to really bribery is legal in the United States of America. So the reason why they didn't want somebody like Senator Bernard Sanders, because he really was going to do his best to put the power in the hands of the people and hold corporate interests responsible. We need real campaign finance reform in this country if we're ever going to get some of the nice things that people like myself and Senator Sanders and others were and still are fighting for.
There's been something, I have to go back to the uncommitted Gaza conversation. There's been something happening that it seems to me kind of like one of these social media phenomena, but maybe has a deeper truth in it, where over the last couple weeks since Harris became the nominee, you've seen sort of Black influencers and activists and the pro-Palestine influencers and activists kind of, there's a split emerging to where you're seeing a lot of frustration that I think is pretty just on behalf of the Black activists who are saying, look, it's our time to think about our needs right now, which are extremely pressing, and then a lot of frustration by the Palestinian side of things saying, well, how dare you abandon us in this moment, you know? I'm curious what you think about that and that sort of whether there is a natural connection between the Black struggle here and, you know, whether that energy that's being expended on this issue in the Middle East is not taking away from more pressing issues here at home.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. Congresswoman Tlaib and I penned an op-ed about the similarities or the connection, the connective tissue between the Black liberation struggle and the liberation struggle of Palestinians. We know that President Nelson Mandela, when he was alive, he talked a lot about that struggle, humanizing the Palestinians. So did Minister Malcolm X and countless other leaders, but I'm naming those two in particular. This is more than one thing can be true at once. Mm-hmm. And I think with my community, because I don't know if she's Palestinian or Arab American, but she came at me. And I'm one of the biggest allies.
That's crazy.
And I had to go in there. You know, my team don't like me going in there, but I went in there and said, how dare you. She had some choice words for me, and then she ended it with, please shut up. Okay, now the first thing that you're not going to do is tell me, a Black woman with agency, to shut up. Now, I've been told to shut up a lot of times by people on Twitter who would never say those things to my face, but it is a microaggression. I take it very personally that you're telling a Black woman with agency that I need to shut up. More poignantly to your point, both things are true. Mm-hmm. While the Black community feels very much abandoned by this country, and we don't have similar allyship, and what I mean by that is that the Black liberation struggle has allowed the liberation of every other marginalized person. Just follow it. Economically, socially, politically. As Black people fight for liberation, every other group gets that same liberation. But the same love and respect is not given to Black people. You have groups of people, and I'm speaking very generally, so folks don't be adding free press and all of that. I am making a generic
they're
statement.
adding free press right now.
Right?
Yes.
Because I want to be clear that I am making a generic statement. That the same love and commitment to the struggle of Black Americans whose ancestors were chattel slaves on this land is not shown. Now, do we have some folks that stand by our side every now and then? Yeah, but I'm talking about deep-seated, we gonna be with our black sisters and brothers because we see our liberation through them. I don't think any other group in this country can be liberated without full black liberation. So black people are offended. And when you have Arab Americans, some, who would, in my grandmother's words, fix their mouths to tell black people that we need to be on the front line of their struggle, that is offensive. Now, there are a lot of black people on the front line of the struggle. I'm one of them. Dr. Cornel West is another. They're numerous. But what you cannot do, Arab Americans or any other group, is to tell black people what we must do. That's where the offense takes place. And to the extent, and there are some people who understand that. One of my dear friends, Rania Patrice, she understands that. But there are a lot of people, and I think others are making mischief. Some of these things might be bots trying to stir up tension between Arab Americans and the black community. What I would say is that the struggle is similar. And when you are a humanist, I mean, I call myself a hell-raising humanitarian. I'm not going to enumerate how many times you come out. Now, I want you there when I'm struggling. But if I got to enumerate how many times you come, then I got to question whether or not I'm a humanitarian. The suffering over in Gaza, the hostages that were taken on October 7th, the people that were killed on October 7th. You know, Congresswoman Tlaib and I both said similar things in terms of an Israeli baby crying and a Palestinian baby crying. You can't tell the difference between their cries. People who are enlightened in this particular movement, because people have asked me, you know, S&T, why are you fighting so hard? You ain't got no relatives over there. They don't fight as hard for us. And what I say is that I am not going to base my recognition of somebody else's humanity on how hard they fight for me. There is a however, though. There has to be a collective consciousness awakening among people of color, among marginalized people, to understand that the black community has a unique struggle in this country. And I'm talking about black Americans who are descendant. I gotta say this because the ADOS movement is very important because not all black people have the same experience. I'm talking about black Americans who are foundational to this country, or other words, black Americans whose ancestors were chattel slaves. I think people take that for granted. And they don't love black people as much as we love humanity. It doesn't make us a perfect people, but black people are usually on the front lines for most marginalized groups.
But I feel like it's so much worse because I feel like all these other marginalized groups steal valor from the ADOS community. Yeah. Like they use like the Americans descended from slaves and the black struggle, whether it's, you know, and you see each group like coming up and saying, now it's our turn. And the Democratic Party, I'm sorry, getting totally sidetracked by this stolen valor, and each time they move from one thing to the next, and it's so frustrating.
And that's why I don't like that identity. I totally agree with you. Reparations. I want to hear the vice president. I wrote, you know, Newsweek.
Yes.
My editor right here. We need a black agenda, and part of that black agenda is reparations. So definitely I'm miffed when President Obama, you know, basically said, you know, he's not the president for black people. I think Vice President Harris has been asked similar questions even before she started running for the presidency. You cannot, in the United States of America, say that you are for true freedom and liberation without recognizing the harm generationally, even to this day, that has been done to black descendants of enslaved people. Let me take Black Wall Street, for example. You both know there were 4 elders alive, all over the age of 100. 2 of them have died. They went before Congress. All they got was pats on the back and atta girl, atta boy, and so sorry you went through that. Now, if you can't look into the eyes of those elders who were children at the time that a white mob came and destroyed their community, burnt it down, stole their stuff, if you cannot say that they deserve reparations, then who else, how else are we gonna get there? Congress did absolutely nothing for them and sent them on the way. 2 have died since, 2 are still alive, and they're still fighting to get reparations for themselves and for their descendants. So absolutely, other groups of color and marginalized groups are gonna have to come to grips with the black liberation struggle and not tell black people we need to wait. And it is offensive. And the black community is very much offended. And I'm generally speaking about the black community too.
Nina Turner, I would never tell you to shut up.
I appreciate that.
I'm slightly terrified of you.
That
because the
person would
passion-
not do that in my
the
face.
passion- yeah,
either.
because I wouldn't do it on Twitter either, because I would also be afraid of you there
I
too.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you coming out and watching Tim Walz's speech with us, and we appreciate you watching. Lots of you out there. We're going to be back tomorrow for the final night and another marathon session of Free Press Live. Thank you, Batya. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a good night.